It's been nearly 2 months since I moved to London, but I still haven't found a flat. My housing situation in London has been quite tumultuous from the very beginning. My first day in London was an Airbnb that I booked for 2 weeks. On the third day, I locked eyes with a mouse in my bedroom, so I packed my bags in 10 minutes and moved immediately. Around this time, I started viewing for flats in London, and I liked the first flat that I saw, so I decided to move in there. But after moving in, I realized that I couldn't see myself living there long term, which was kind of strange because obviously that thought didn't occur to me when I first viewed it. I started viewing for flats again. And eventually, I found the perfect flat. This place had the view of the river. It had a garden, a balcony, a lot of sunlight, which was all of the qualities that I wanted in a room. So I agreed to move in, and I told my current flat that I'd be leaving in a month. But a week before I was supposed to move into the perfect flat, it fell through because there was a major red flag before signing the tenancy agreement. So now I'm in this situation where I have to leave my current flat in just a few days, and I haven't found my next flat yet. And that makes me feel worried and stressed. But looking back on what could have prevented this, or maybe not prevent, but what I've learned not to do in the future is rushing things. In my entire life, nothing ever good has come out of rushing things. When I decided to move into my current flat, I should have viewed at least 4 to 5 other flats, not saying yes to the first one. At the time, I was uneasy with the whole mouse in the Airbnb situation, that I wanted to find a flat as quick as possible, thinking it would immediately mitigate the discomfort I was feeling about my housing situation. But that led me to make a hasty decision. So, yesterday, I went to a bookstore to get myself out of this bottomless pit of worrying and to instead find words of comfort and inspiration. While I was casually browsing, I saw a book that immediately caught my eye that said reasons not to worry. So I started reading that, and the author talks about stoic principles and how to apply them to everyday life. And reading that made me want to check out the philosophy section. So I went there and I found this book called The Art of Living. It's a book about Epictetus and his teachings. And the reason I'm talking about this is not to highlight this specific book, but to explain how Epictetus's philosophy made me feel less anxious about my situation. In the book, Epictetus says, happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. It is only after you have faced up to this fundamental rule and learned to distinguish between what you can and can't control that inner tranquility and outer effectiveness become possible. Reading this part made me think, is finding a flat that I like within my budget in a competitive place like London something I can control, or is it something I can't? And I think it's both. There are things that I can control and there are things that I cannot. What I cannot control is when a flat that I like within my budget comes up on the market, how competitive it is to find a flat in London, especially now since students start uni in September and there's a lot of demand, and the landlord's decision. However, what I can control is the effort that I put into finding a flat. For instance, checking if there are any new listings frequently and messaging them and going to viewings. The compromises I'm willing to make, for instance, things like the location, budget, or size of the flat. And most importantly, I can control my response to this whole flat hunting process. Epictetus also says, if you think you have free reign over things that are naturally beyond your control, your pursuits will be thwarted and you will become a frustrated, anxious and fault finding person. And this phrase in particular really stuck with me. I mean, we already know this, right? So the concept itself isn't new to me, but the moment I read the sentence, it felt like the weight of anxiety being lifted. Because now I've distinguished what I can control and what I can't about my situation. I only have to focus on things that I can control and let go of things that I can't. And realizing that makes me feel freer. I think, the sky is so pretty today. I think I first came across Stoic philosophy when I was in middle school or high school, but at the time it felt too distant to relate to. But the older I get, the more I think about how to deal with situations like this and also how to live a happy life. Now I realize that philosophy wasn't something that was just abstract, but it can be a practical tool that actually improves your life. If you're struggling to find a flat like I am, or going through any other difficulty in life, know that you're not alone. We will get through this. And I hope you find freedom and happiness along the way.